Welcome to the Tech Prospective Podcast presented by Flatiron School. This is where we talk about perspectives and stories from individuals all across the tech industry landscape. I'm Jaslyn Ferguson, Community Manager here at Flatiron School, and your host for this episode. Today, I am joined by a very special guest, another one of our Flatiron School alum. But before I introduce her, I just want to do a few quick reminders. Please do me a favor if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so that you never miss an episode. And if you are listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you stream your podcasts, please be sure to add us to your favorites. You don't want to miss these episodes. All right, without further ado, our special guest today is Linda, also known from her social handles as Linda Vivah. Linda, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on.
Well, we're excited to have you. Linda graduated from Flatiron School through the software engineering program. So let's go ahead and start off with you, Linda, just telling us about yourself, what it is that you currently do, and just kind of give us that initial introduction.
Absolutely. So I actually attended Flatiron School probably now 7 years ago. And I currently work as a site reliability engineer. Pretty much, I work on the infrastructure team to make our infrastructure reliable, as the role sounds. And that role could be defined in many ways. But majority of my job does involve coding and automation of sorts and keeping our sites up on prod. So I guess it's like treating ops as a software problem, I guess. But prior to that, I was a JavaScript developer for 5 years, working more in web application development. And that was also my job post Flatiron School. And Flatiron School changed my life. So I'm excited to talk about it a bit more and dig into it. So
speaking of which, so what were you doing before Flatiron School?
Yeah, so I actually graduated as a philosophy major from college. So I had a BA in philosophy. Okay. And I thought I would go to law school. So I started working post-college in TV and thought I would study for my LSATs throughout. I never took a computer science course at all in college, never was exposed to coding or anything like that, and had to update a book website for one of my bosses and ended up dabbling with some basic CSS code. It wasn't CSS, it wasn't even like anything complex, but it totally sparked an interest. I ended up attending a lot of meetups and for like almost a year was just trying to teach myself. I actually went to a part-time class at Flatiron School. At the time, they offered an in-person front-end development course. And from there, I knew I wanted to do this full-time. I ended up quitting my job, taking a loan, and attending Flatiron School for 4 months. I think it was, 7 years ago now, and I can't believe
it. Wow. 7 years ago. I feel like you're one of our OG alum. That's awesome.
when Adam and Ari were in the house, I remember seeing them, and Karlie Kloss was there too at some point.
Oh wow! That's awesome.
I saw her there on Fridays.
Flatiron School.
Yeah. It was amazing.
Awesome. Yeah. That's so cool. So for anyone who doesn't know, of course, Karlie Kloss is the supermodel that has been very open in talking about how she learned to code. And she now has coding camps that help young girls to learn to code as well. So that's awesome that you were there at the same time that she was. And were you at the physical campus or were you taking courses online?
So at the time, I think it was before Flatiron launched the online program, I was in the in-person immersive for 3 to 4 months. And it was amazing. It was over the winter. So it really felt like such a family. I loved going there. I did a lot. Everyone around me also, quit their job to do this. So everyone was very dedicated. And it really did influence how I learned. I knew I needed that. And I felt like Flatiron School did such a good job at making the right groups for that. And I hear great things about the online program. I know many people who also have done the Flatiron School online program. So I know that same thing is imitated with technology. It just didn't exist at that point, of course, which is also crazy.
Yes. How quickly things change, right? Yes, and even with these past, couple of years now, where we've of course been going through the pandemic, there's been obviously changes across the board. We had to stop having in-person classes, and so all of our students were online for a time and a season. But we're excited because the good news is that slowly but surely we're able to open some of our campuses. So going into 2022, we will have some courses available on the New York campus. So that's really fun. And I think, to your point, how quickly things change. But yes, with our online and our on-campus classes, it really is awesome that people can just make that choice, right? What's best for them, what works best for their schedule. But
Absolutely.
it's super exciting that we will have that available again, because I think, to your point about the fact that you were able to have that kind of close-knit family feel, that's kind of invaluable sometimes, right? Like, just being able
Absolutely.
to interact with people that are learning with you is really cool. So awesome.
And yeah, whether it's online or in person, I think in general, just having a community of people that are dedicated to learn together, you learn a lot from the questions they ask. It's less, sometimes even about maybe the teacher teaching something, but having the right environment to ask those questions and learn together. And I think that was something that was incredibly powerful and helpful for me at Flatiron School, where even if during winter break, we did have a break where we were learning remotely, and I was able to ask, different fellow colleagues of mine, different fellow students, where I was struggling, and I had that community.
Yeah.
So whether it's online or in person, it's just powerful to have that.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because, in this day and age, right, there's so many ways that you can teach yourself a lot of things online. And, with Flatiron School, we obviously encourage people to do that, especially as they're starting out, right? You're not even going to know if this is what you want to do unless you kind of dabble in things beforehand. But with that being said, so it sounds like it was kind of from a place of necessity. You had to do this project. Then you find yourself, dabbling a little in CSS. What then made you say, okay, like, I want to take this a step further and I'm going to enroll into a boot camp course? Like, what made you make that step, or to identify like how you wanted to learn this skill set?
Absolutely. I think it's important, number one, to know how you learn. I personally really needed, and a lot of people need this, a place where I could ask questions, but I needed more of a guide too, and a process. I wanted a deadline. Like, I knew at the time I wanted to start a family within a year. I needed to graduate and get a job before that year. And that was my personal goal. And I was like, what's the fastest way I'm going to do this? What's the way I feel I'm going to learn best? And for me, I looked at a few different paths, and the best for me was going to Flatiron School. I went also and checked other schools. I don't think all boot camps are created equal. And I think that where Flatiron School, the moment I walked in, I felt at home. I felt there was diversity. I felt like it was the right environment for me. And that's what made me choose Flatiron School. And I did my research. I did it for a year. I say it from personal experience. This is not like some, this is literally, I say the 7 years later, it was the best decision I ever made. It did change my life. And I think, could I have done it on my own? Could you self-study? Absolutely, you can. It would have taken me 10 times longer. And that for me was time that was valuable. And I also think that projects where you collab with other people are really important on your resume, and it makes it much easier to have that when you're in a bootcamp environment, because a lot of the work you're going to be doing is not going to be solo, unless it's just not, especially if you're going into a company or you want to apply to work somewhere, you'll need to show collaborative work, and you won't always have that on your resume, but it's so much better when you do. And going to Flatiron School, I was able to also have that on my resume because I built projects with other people in my cohort. So there were many benefits for going through the program for me.
Gotcha. Awesome. Speaking of which, so you are a mom now,
Yes.
and so that goal came to fruition as well. So as you were going through this process, though, and has there ever been points, whether it was before you started this process or even during, where you're a mom and you're a woman, and this is such a male-dominated field or industry, right? That like maybe you had reservations or fears. Was there ever moments where you either doubted maybe, you shouldn't do this, or you felt like maybe scared that you wouldn't find other people like you in this space? Talk us through kind of your thought processes there.
For sure. When I started going to meetups, when I went to meetups that were not women focused, like women who code, it was really surprised. Like, I mean, I was looking at the industry and it was just lack of diversity, lack of women, just, you go to these meetups and you just don't see anybody you relate to. And even within the boot camps, and this was something that I also was part of my decision, was I was going and some of them had like 3 women and like 20 men in a cohort. And it was just like, so it just felt like I needed the diversity, also different things, just that, but like I needed to feel like, everyone's there. And especially it was surprising to me because looking at why I was going to transition to this career, I felt like it was more flexibility. I felt like there was such creativity. The products I wanted to build, I mean, should be built by everybody. And it just didn't make sense to me. When I was like looking at the ratio, I was kind of questioning why women, or, just why don't you see even diversity a lot of times in the industry? And, I thought what the boot camps were doing were really breaking the industry a bit in a good way, because I think it was making it accessible to other people. And that was 7 years ago. So it was still, I would say a newer concept. And I remember like people not understanding it. And that's how it always is, right? Like, they always tell you you have to have a degree, and the beauty with tech is the innovation goes so fast that degrees are great. I'm not like saying they're not, but like it's a long time and not always the right path, especially if you want to start building. I think the best experience is building. And to do that, I felt like a boot camp really gave me all those things. And of course you need a self-study, and it's all what you make of it. You need to come in dedicated to do it. And I did the pre-work. I was definitely stressed throughout. That's normal. You're never going to feel like you know everything. It's part of the learning curve. But that's the other thing. Learning something in a very tight timeline helps you build upon different concepts that were really the problem with the learning curve sometimes for me when I was trying to study on my own, because there were so many things that were building upon each other. And especially when you're starting out and you don't know what to expect, it is really hard to get through that curve alone. Not saying you can't. It's just, I personally know how I study, and I was like, I really need people asking questions around me. I need to feel like I have a path and somewhere that even when I'm lost, I have where to turn to, and something that's supposed to take me where I'm stuck, could be stuck for a few hours as opposed to a few weeks. And it could completely take me off, off the track. The other thing was I was working in TV, and TV is not very, the schedule is not very concrete. Like you could be walking in at 3 a.m. It's very hard for you to have prime hours of work like in tech. And I knew that in order to get good at what I'm doing, I needed to make a very drastic shift. And that meant quitting my job, as much as like, it felt like, yes, it's a move that I wasn't sure what I was doing. I was overwhelmed. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Am I even, I was questioning, like as a woman, I was like, is this the place for me? Am I being stupid that I'm gonna, be able to do this? And, I'm so glad that I didn't listen to that inner voice that was like of doubt. And I listened to the inner voice of intuition that this is going to work out, as opposed to that one.
Awesome.
But yeah, and to get that confidence, I did go to Flatiron School a few times prior. Before I went to the boot camp, I did go to meetups. I think meetups are really important as far as gaining the confidence, hearing other people talk about their experiences. And the other thing I utilized to help me from like that question you were asking earlier regarding like being a woman in a male dominated field, one thing that really helped me was also social media. At the time, there were not that many people in the tech community on there, but there were a few people who made me feel like I could do it. There was an account named Coder Girl. She's amazing, and I've met her since in person. But she was one of the first people I followed, and it just made me feel like I could do this. So surrounding yourself with a mindset that you could do it, plus having the guidance and community, is so important. So that was kind of like how I went through that part.
No, yeah, that's so true. And I think now's the perfect time to take a moment to really talk about the fact that you have now since created such a strong online presence where you're going in, and I'm sure for tons of people, you're that voice, right? You're that person that they can look at and say, okay, if, Linda Vivah can do it, or if this is her experience, I can do it too. which is so awesome.
Amen.
In a sense, it's almost like giving back, right? It's almost like
Right.
you're like, I made this journey and now you're able to help encourage so many other people to make their journey. So if you don't already follow her, definitely check out Linda Vivah, on Instagram and also on TikTok. This is putting in a little plug here, but no, seriously, your content is so fun. It's so much fun, but it also, it's very, I want to say, like, it helps to, just educate people on like what to expect. Like, what is that like, having your job, but then also it's almost like you have this other job where you're, making social videos and kind of giving people that peek behind the curtain.
What's funny? I actually started, I feel like, a lot of my confidence to post because of Flatiron School. So in Flatiron School, they require you to write a Medium blog as you're learning. Mm-hmm. And one of the things prior to Flatiron School, even, that I was always looking at was all the free content there is. Who's creating all this free content? It's a culture. It's a culture of sharing resources. How do we become innovative? We share. And what started for me as a place where I was, kind of documenting my journey ended up really being a place where I could also give back what I also gained from the community and the skills. I think sometimes with social media, it could feel a little scary to post things, especially when you're trying to learn. But the best way sometimes to learn is to teach. And so I use it a lot as a way to give back and accountability and community. And the amount of people I've met within the community, thanks to social media, that's why I look at it as a community, especially in tech. We're all learning every day. I'm 7 years in, I'm learning every single day. There's always a lot to learn. It never ends, but that's the beauty. We're like professional students. We get maybe better at certain things because we've experienced it many times, but we're also always kind of having this growth mindset and learning something new. And that's the best part about it. We're really building products and it's exciting. So, kind of having that as part of the curriculum almost to write blog posts was so great because it let me feel confident that it's okay for me to put content out as I'm learning. And the interesting part is your voice at every part of the journey matters, because how you teach something fundamental when you're a beginner sometimes is more understandable for the person starting out than the person senior teaching that, because they can't remember what it was like. Yeah. So there's so many things that I look back even at things I wrote that I explained probably in a way that was probably better than I would today because I was in the midst of it. So I think doing that and using, if social media is your thing or a place that you, especially with the pandemic, a lot of people use social media as really a community and a social tool to so I say however you use it. For me now it's very much about giving back and teaching. I love it. I love mentoring people and sharing information, and you know what, I've met so many peers throughout it. It's really a community for me and really something that is very fulfilling, and part of tech culture, I think, to give back and share that information and have it free and have it open source. And it's been such an incredible journey. And I started out really like scared to post, documenting it, and over time, and it was able to share that. And I share a little bit about my kids. I share about like my life, and I think that's part of it, right? It's about breaking stereotypes. Like we're not just like one thing. Like you're not just. Even when coding, like tech jobs, they're not just about tech. They're also about people skills. Like it really does matter when you're building products. And so having people from different walks of life and knowing you can do that and build a life you want through that, like tech enabled me to build a life I want. Tech enabled me to be present with my kids and be a working mom. And, coming from TV, it's a very big contrast because it was a job that was very different. I think like when you come with other skill sets, know that it could be very transferable, because there's many things I think I still use and it's all about building those products. So I still work in TV, but I build tech products, and it's just totally different now because I'm building something else. But just know that like no matter where your walk of life is, when you're going into a boot camp, right, if anybody's listening and you're not sure, like those skills aren't nothing. They're very much relevant and they're very much transferable, and the beauty is tech isn't everything, right? So that for me was a lesson I learned, especially throughout the school journey and throughout the years. So
I love that. Tech is in everything, because I think that that's it's such an important thing for people to remember, right? Because if they're like, oh, I'm going to do this boot camp, I think a lot of the perception is I've got to scrap everything I've done, start from scratch, build myself up from the ground up. But that's your living example of you worked in TV, but now you found a way to still be in that same industry, but you're also part of the tech industry and able to be a part of, doing something that there's always a need for, and there's always growth in. That's such a little golden nugget of key information for anyone listening. Write that down.
Exactly.
Yes, I love that. So you're going through this process, and whether it's, while you were still at Flatiron School or even after, were you ever able to, I know you said, of course, this going through, a boot camp course at Flatiron School, of course you have the support of your peers, your instructors and all that. But did you ever have specifically a mentor or somebody who was, able to kind of help you through this journey?
I will say that I think for me, where I was lost was I didn't know anybody in the tech industry, and the only way I was really meeting anybody was through meetups. Yeah. I didn't have a mentor per se, but I did build a network of people that were learning. Through Flatiron School, there were many people I still keep in touch with, that I met through that, and we were all really learning together. And post that, within the post graduation, we really kind of continued that. So I didn't have a mentor, but I would say I did utilize community and network to have a support system. But yeah, I would say it was definitely something that kind of I hope to be for others. I definitely didn't have it. Maybe it would have saved me some time, but but it's one of those things that I did use social media as a way for me to have an example of somebody who could do something and get advice, because there was a lot of free advice on there. But yeah, I think today, especially using Twitter also for resources, and especially when looking for a job post, a boot camp or anything, it's really important to network and build that network. That helped me a lot when trying to land my first job. And so I think building that doesn't need to be people in tech, but people that understand that, and that support that and support you. So I think I was resourceful, but I didn't have a specific mentor.
Gotcha. But I love that you built up a network, like you said. And I think that's beautiful that you still, some of these connections and friendships that you've made have still lasted to this day. That's pretty powerful. That's awesome. But I'm sure going through an experience going through a boot camp to take a course that ultimately, shifts your whole career trajectory, going through that with other people, that's bound to bond you for life, right?
Absolutely. And I was so in awe the walks of life that people came in, first of all, I come from music. I come from a musical family. A lot of people were musical, which was very interesting. The correlation between music and coding. I do feel like there's a lot of correlation there. But yeah, it was interesting. There was math teachers, people who already had a degree in computer science, but felt like they didn't get hands-on experience. There were people who worked in totally different job sets, such a diverse group of people, and all kind of learning the same thing and building projects together. And I think taking advantage of that within a boot camp and networking with the people, and not just the material, but learning to build together. And it was very helpful in the process, especially when you're not sure you're overwhelmed. Because I was definitely having some mental breakdowns. It's a lot to learn in a very short time, but that's the beauty. That's why it's called a boot camp. But it's a boot camp with a community, and that's the key, right? It's not just about, when you do it with other people, it's kind of, you build memories.
Yes. So note to anyone listening, if you go through a boot camp, breakdowns are normal, but there will be people around you to help you get through it.
Exactly. I love it. You'll question your brain, but it's okay. You'll be do I understand any of this?
But again, I think that's so important for people to know, because, going through something like that, I'm sure there's tons of people who question, am I cut out for this? Did I, make the right decision? Why is this so hard? But I think it's important to realize, it's going to be hard, right? It's a lot to learn in a short amount of time. But, if you can push through it and get through it and really work through some of those hurdles, the beauty is that, 7 years later, you can be looking back at it, talking on a podcast about how you triumphed and made it through. So.
And not only that, I think a lot of concepts that you'll learn in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
One question I get a lot is like, what, people going through bootcamp that, they're not sure, like, how do I don't understand certain things and it's moving very fast. Some of the stuff doesn't make sense or come together till the end, or even sometimes after a few months, because it's such a fast pace. There's things you're going to understand off the get-go, and there's things that will take you a little longer. Knowing how to move forward within that and just pick up what you can and understand that throughout the process, as you do more projects, some things will click over time. And you'll be like, oh, I remember my cohort talking about this. Now this makes sense. Like it might take a little more time to sleep on it, but that's okay. That's the beauty. I mean, happens to be 7 years later doing other jobs, like other things. That's how it is in tech. It's never ending.
I love it. That's so awesome. So now that you're in tech and you've been in tech for a while, what's just like your favorite part about working in this industry?
I definitely think the lifelong learning. It's funny to say, I really don't feel like I work in the sense of like what my grandparents would think of as work. Like in the sense, right. I just don't feel like I do something I wouldn't do for free in a weird way, right? Like, not that I'm going to do it for free, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like it just feels like I get to do the best job in the world. I get to build products, and I feel so excited to work in this industry. I love that I'm able to also utilize it in my own life. I'm able to teach my kids about it. It's about intellectual curiosity, right? It's about like, I always thought like, I was kind of a person who always really loved lifelong learning kind of thing. And it is a job pretty much that that's part of the job. A lot of roles you have within tech, like a percentage of it is set for learning. You're learning even on the job. Any job you have in tech, you're learning. And I think that constant innovation, it's never boring. And to me, it's very much a subtle art, as they say. Like, I think there's something artistic about the approach and how you do certain things. And it's actually super creative, more than people, I think, realize. So.
Oh, that's awesome. And something you said just reminded me that I was on Instagram earlier, and I saw that you got your kids a 3D printer. And I just thought that was the coolest thing, because I think, again, it's kind of to that point of like, constantly being able to learn and to explore, just the world that's out there and the things that we can create and the things that we can do. Clearly that's important to you. Is
exactly,
as you're raising your kids, like this, this idea of like wanting them to work in tech, or like, do you want them to work in tech, or do you teach them little like coding nuggets here and there? What does that look like?
Totally. It's such a good question, and something I'm very passionate about. So I think with tech, being that we use so much technology in our life, no matter what they do as a career, right, understanding the technology around you and practicing intellectual curiosity and going after that, instead of me just buying them something, I prefer that they design and create it, and they will learn something in the process. And whether they end up doing a career in tech or they end up doing something else, those skills are so important for your day to day. And I do feel like today, especially, like my kids were skipping ads on YouTube before they ever spoke. I mean, it's unreal, but it's the truth. So we rely so much on these gadgets and technology around us and the software around us. So not understanding how it works, it's kind of like a 101. And I do feel like today I see that a lot more ingrained. But I absolutely want them to have that and give them those skills. And they could decide, of course, what they do with that. Right. But I think also teaching them to be builders and to go after what they're interested in is really important. So even like the 3D printer example, right? Like for me, it's one of those things that like, instead of giving them 8 days of Hanukkah presents, I got one printer and they could print something every single day. And if they want something new, we could design it.
I love it. I love it.
So
I love it. That's so
that
awesome.
was kind of the approach.
I love it. And I think that also says something just about, what you've said, intellectual curiosity, being a builder. Again, I think a lot of people don't always equate those things with coding, and they're like, oh, coding, you sit in front of a computer, you do whatever. But there is a real, like you said, just like this ongoing learning that happens, and this ongoing like building things, which is, just really cool and super rewarding. So yeah, no, I think, your kids probably have it made in the sense that they will always be able to explore those areas, which, like you said, no matter where they go in life, that's going to be so important. That's like huge. So,
yep. And coding is just the language.
Yeah.
Coding is just a language to build something. It's a tool to do something. And the real thing is the building, and that's going to evolve always. It's about the products, right?
Yeah.
So
true. So again, speaking of building things, you have also, on this long list of things that you've accomplished, you also have your own business, Coding Crystals. Tell us a little bit about that. How did it get started? What it is? Give us the whole rundown.
Yeah. So I have a shop called Coding Crystals, which is a STEM-inspired accessory jewelry shop. It really came out of a creativity outlet. I started it because I really wanted to have some jewelry for myself that was very glam. I'm a very extra person as it comes to like bling. I used to perform. I've been performing in music all my life, and I always it was very much a part of me. And when going into tech, as my first job in tech, it wasn't that I didn't have supportive people around me and a great team, but it did feel like I was not sure if to dim my light or not a little bit. I wasn't sure if suddenly I convert from coming in. I used to work in TV, so I was always coming in dresses, and not totally up to you what you want to come in with, right? But I just felt like, am I doing that because I'm just in tech and that's why I'm trying to change how I dress, or is it because something I wanted? So I was kind of having these questions. I was like, you know what? There was a trend of having a lot of different words in your hair. And I was just like, I really want one that has coder or engineer. Yeah. And so I ended up creating that. And it started out as something I wanted to wear and was an outlet. I was hand making jewelry when I was pregnant because it was another thing I picked up while I was not able to perform, because I used to sing every single weekend. And when I didn't sing and I was pregnant, I was working, but I needed something very artistic to do. Yeah. And I started creating STEM inspired jewelry. And it started, at first it was just a slow thing. And then when I released the hairpins, it kind of I noticed that a lot of people love it. And then I was able to, also give a part of it, to diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and donate some of it. So it's really been so special. And then it kind of became also a community, and seeing just teachers wear it in class, and it just became a whole journey of its own. And it kind of a mixed circle of you make something and it inspires you to continue it because you see your customers, and then it kind of inspires you with this whole other mission. So it kind of felt like that kind of cycle, where it started as something small, it just became something I really love doing. And then I ended up designing a few other things, and I have a few other things that are coming out. Of course, I do this on the side, so it's hard to balance with everything else. So I don't get to launch as much as I want new products, but I have a lot in the pipeline. And I love it. It's really about breaking stereotypes, and whoever does resonate with that, to know that there's also that place, and to just own who you are in the industry and bring yourself fully, because I think that's what makes you special and unique. Tech is it's not a robotic job. That's not, you're supposed to bring your person with you and build those products. Yes. The coding is the language, but how you do certain things, your voice, it matters, and your entity, that matters. And so being who you are, it doesn't have to be that you like glam, but that's just one of many things. And for me, just something I didn't feel was represented enough. And I'm happy that I'm able to make a small little tiny difference somewhere. So
yeah, I mean, I feel like that just speaks to what we do as a society, right? We put people into boxes. You're either the girly girl or you're the girl that does coding, right? And it's you can be both. You can be so many things. Humans are multifaceted.
Amen, Jinx.
Yes. But that's why I love it. I love it so much. I'll be scrolling through and looking at some of the different products you have. And I think, like you said, just to know that there are teachers that are wearing these products and really helping to spark that, curiosity in young girls to know, you can be both. And, coding is a path for literally everyone. There's so many different types of people who can learn that skill set and apply it in so many different ways. So kudos to you for starting
especially that part. Yeah, thank you. And you know, especially that part where with the teachers, you know, I remember in high school and college, like so many things are based on who teaches you. And sometimes how much you love a subject is also based on how it's taught and who's teaching it. And just knowing, like for me, like seeing a teacher wear that and thinking maybe there's a little girl who feels resonating to that because, you know, it's something that maybe is much more up what she likes, and like just knowing you could build every kind of product, it's like really special. So yeah, I think that I always go back to kind of like, you know, so how many subjects didn't I like because I wasn't taught in a way that felt engaging and relatable, you know?
Yeah.
And
So
it was
true.
never the subject sometimes. So yeah.
Very, very true. All right. So whether it's coding crystals or just in your life, what are you super excited about for this new year that's coming up, right? 2022 is on the horizon.
Oh my gosh. I'm just grateful also. I have to say, like, I love practicing gratitude. I'm grateful for everything I do have, like where I'm very motivated and fired up to continue and grow and everything. But I do it also, like my motivation is a mix of trying to be my best self and my kids and, you know, doing the best for them. And, I'm really excited to continue the path forward. I want to do a lot more, you know, content creation next year. And I love educating and a lot more in the cloud computing space these days. So a lot of that coming up. And yeah, just trying to really always push the limit for myself to grow and learn. I want to pick up new things and I'm excited for that. And I'm excited to share it with people around me and continue learning every day and you know, enjoying it and most importantly in good health. And, you know, in the future and just, you know, this has been not an easy time for many people. And I hope we see better trajectories upwards. And I think tech is instrumental in being able to do that. So.
Yep. Very well said. All right. Well, here at Tech Perspective, we like to end on the note of asking each of our guests, what's a quote that you live by? And you can take your time to think this through because I know I'm putting you on the spot.
No, this is great.
But what's a quote that you live by?
So a quote that I live by is be the artist of your own life. And I think the reason I felt confident to go into tech was because I wasn't planning on just going. I believe in going with the flow in the sense of like progressing and saying yes to things and trying new things. But I also feel like you need to envision what that life that you want is and make sure that what you're doing is aligned with that. And for me, tech enabled all those things. And it helped me both from a fulfillment standpoint, from the things I love to learn, and from a flexibility standpoint, from just in every direction. For me personally, it checked the box. And I think that's something I live by always. And I keep progressing there. Those things might change throughout time. And as we progress, as new things come out, as your goals change, entrepreneurship is, but it's like all those things, that's kind of the quote that I always wake up in the morning thinking about. Because I do think there's a part where you want to be proactive about it, right? And you want to manifest it because I do believe in manifestation of what you want because you do subconscious actions because of it. So, yeah, that's kind of my main mantra, I guess.
Awesome. I love it. I absolutely love it. Thank you so much for talking with me today, Linda. It's always such a joy. Linda's been on, she's, been on other event panels of ours. Just always a joy talking to you. I always feel inspired when I talk to you.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor. And for me, such a full circle because Flatiron School, I think I've said that you could probably look back 5 years, 6, I think I've said this all the time. It's one of the best decisions I ever made awesome. Because I do feel like it gave me that path. And so I'm so grateful to be able to contribute back and help anybody else try to make the transition because it definitely helped me in my life. So yeah, and thank you always for having me, for all you do. It's always an honor.
Awesome. Well, we're going to do one last little shout out. Let the people know where they can follow you on social media for both your personal accounts as well as Coding Crystals.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram at Linda Vivah, on TikTok at Linda Vivah, and Twitter as well, but most active on Instagram probably as far as that. And yeah, it's where I mostly post a lot of tech content, mix of lifestyle too. And yeah, I hope to connect with you all.
Awesome. For everyone that is watching again on YouTube, please like if you enjoyed this conversation, and be sure to subscribe because we have more of these conversations coming. And also, if you are streaming this somewhere, make sure you add it to your favorites because, again, we've got so many more episodes on the way. And also make sure that you follow Flatiron School on social media as well. We are launching a Tech Prospective group on Facebook, so be sure to join that. Just another way that you can join the conversation, be a part of the conversation, discuss this episode, other episodes. So be sure to join that Facebook group because that's where we can take, maybe the little nuggets of information that we put in here, but we can talk about them so much more. All right, that's it. Until next time, thanks so much for joining us, and peace out, everyone.